Yo, what's good, y'all? In today's video, I got a Battlegrounds video for y'all. Wow, it's been probably like maybe like 3, 4 months and stuff. The Battlegrounds series is pretty much over. I have been contemplating maybe like rewriting some of the code to like simplify it and stuff to cut down on like unnecessary stuff, improve things, because it's like I recognize that the code structure is not the best and stuff, and that it probably should have been much more optimized. For example, I don't know why I have 5 different GUIs instead of just having. I should have honestly just had. I should have just had one GUI that just has like like 5 frames or like no more than like two really and stuff. But there was no need for me to do like 5 different GUIs and stuff. And I should have had like another module script to handle other stuff. But the point is, if y'all are interested in that and like y'all want me to do that as well as for my tower defense series, I will happily do that and stuff. I can, I'll rewrite the code, simplify it and stuff for later parts. Y'all just let me know if that's something you're interested in. But yeah, so this is like a little mini series I'm doing where I'm gonna go through the code and I'm gonna go through each line. This series is about like about 600 to 800, including the module script. I want to say about yeah, about maybe like 1,000. I'm not gonna lie. Either I'm horrible at math or wait, no, that's 600. No, close enough. It's like 900. Yeah, 900 lines are close enough. So yeah, so almost like 1,000 lines of code and stuff. So I'm gonna go through each thing, explain it. I don't really see a need to explain all this like the UI. I don't really see a need to do all that. But yeah, so I'm gonna go through the code. I'm gonna explain every single line, even though I did do that in the videos, but this is gonna be like an overall breakdown and stuff, right? And stuff, especially since I'm not typing, so I can just read out to y'all. But yeah, if you're interested in making the series, just start at part one, and yeah, let's go ahead and get straight into the video. Then let me just make sure we're good. Okay, we're gonna start. Okay, so of course we're gonna start at the core local scripts. Forgive me if this video isn't that great. First time doing this, but yeah. Okay, so we're starting off pretty simple, right? We've made some variables and stuff, right? We're making some variables and everything, right? So first things first, we've made some variables for our important stuff. I separated the space in between this to separate between our services and our like other stuff like remote events, UI, and stuff like that, right? So a good habit and stuff with coding, or specifically with coding Roblox, is to get your services first. Like get the important stuff first. So get services, retrieve services first, stuff like that, data stores and whatnot. And do that first. Do you want to do like I want to call this a custom variable. I don't know the specific term for it, because this doesn't retrieve anything. This is just that we're creating a value, or I guess like the best way to phrase it and stuff. We're not like actually retrieving like all this stuff. This is retrieving things, right? We're getting services, we're getting our remote events, the local player. This, we're creating a Boolean value. That's what we're doing with this. So yeah, you want to retrieve first, create later, if that makes sense and stuff, right? um so yeah, so first things first, we get the user input service to text user input. We get the tween service. That's how you animate things, not animations. That's just how you animate like things like parts moving and stuff like that. The sound service, self-explanatory. It's how it sounds, stuff, gunshots, explosions, blah blah blah. Our core events. This is our remote event inside of replicated storage and stuff, right? This is how the local script communicates with the server script, or the client side communicates with the server, and vice versa. Server communicates with the clients with the client as well and stuff. So yeah, it's just pretty much two-way communication, right? Then we get our local play, which is just the client side instance of the player, right? Then we get our character. We create a variable for our character selector GUI, right? Which is right here, character selector. This is where you click C, and then the player has the options to select their character and everything. We use the wait for child because UI takes a significant amount of time to load, especially depending on how much UI and other assets you have in your game. So we use wait for child. So we're halting the execution of the code until the UI has loaded. Then of course we do the same thing with the hotbar UI, which is this right here, our hotbar, all of this right here, our ultimate bar as well as the hotbar, right? So we're just doing the same thing. Then we create a variable for mobile user. This is a Boolean value, which is either set to true or false. We use this to detect if a player is a mobile user, and if they are a mobile user, then what we want to do is we want to enable certain things for them to give them, to allow them to be able to play the game and stuff if they or not allow them to play the game, but like to unlock new functionalities or like alternatives and stuff so that they can play the game, and have a similar or almost the same exact experience as a player playing on console or PC and stuff, right? So we get into our first function right here, right? Yeah, it would have been so much better for me to do local functions and have named them. Probably would help people understand what they were writing. But anyway, um, So our first function is the drop down button, right? So this is pretty much, this function is triggered, so drop down button, this would be this button right here. And then activated means whenever you click or tap on this. So if you're on PC, click. If you're on mobile, then you tap this, right? So upon that function being pressed and stuff, what happens is it's gonna use if statement. Yeah, I could have definitely did this a lot differently, but regardless, it's gonna use an if statement. So we're gonna check this. We're gonna say if character selected GY drop down button drop down frame character one button that background transparency is equal to 1, right? Then so pretty much what this means is if it's equal to 1, then what we can assume is that it is not currently visible and that we want to make them visible, right? if it if they are transparent, then that means they're currently visible and we want to make them no longer visible. So what we do is we're going to use the for loop to iterate through the children of the drop down frame, which let me open it up for y'all. So drop down button, drop down frame, we have our 3 character buttons. So let me go ahead and play for y'all and then show y'all. So boom, these 3 buttons, right? That's what we're looking at. So we have our 3 character buttons and stuff, right? So we're gonna get the children. We're gonna first check to make sure that they are text buttons and stuff. That is their class, right? Text buttons. We want to ignore like UI grid layout if you have any other things inside of the frame that aren't character buttons. Then once we've confirmed that, we're gonna say v.visible is equal to true. We will set their visible properties to true because they're set to false by default, so that players can see them. Then we will tween it. So we will create a tween to animate it. When I say tween, I just mean animate. That's all I mean. Um, right. Well, then these are just our tween settings and stuff, right? It'll be 1 second. V is the instance, so that specific text button. This is the easing style, the easing direction. We'll set the text transparency to 0 as well as the background transparency, which means this will be the background color will be half visible, and the name of the character will be fully visible, right? That's all that means. Then we'll play the tween. Then for the else if their transparency is set to 0.5, that means that is currently visible, and then we want to make it no longer visible. So then we just do the complete opposite, right? We do the close tween where we tween it. We do the complete opposite. Text transparency is set to 1, background transparency is set to 1 as well, right? And then once the close tween is finished, this close tween got completed. It just means this function will wait until the tween has finished, until it's finished animating. Once that's done, then we will just do the opposite of this and make them no longer visible and stuff. We'll set that equal to false, which means they will no longer be visible, so players can't click on them or anything associated like that, right? Um, so the reason why, if you're wondering the reason why I had to wrap this in a function and it looks different than this, is because when this is, we can set this to true like off the bat and then just animate it and then just let the tween play. The problem is with this is that we need to wait for the tween to finish playing, because what will happen is if you like it fades out. So it would just like as soon as like the problem is if you don't have this function or like a wait time, it would just start fading out and then automatically disappear. We want to wait till it fades out, then make it no longer visible, if that makes sense, right? So yeah, so that's our first function explained and stuff. Not gonna lie, I'm probably gonna have to break this up into multiple videos now that I think about it, because it's gonna take a while to explain each line. But yeah, okay. So then moving on to our next function, pretty simple. So drop down frame, get children. So this pretty much this is like a continuation of this. So once the player has opened up the character um like the character buttons and stuff, or once they open up, I should say the character selector UI, right? And then they want to select the character, so we'll say v dot. So we will simply use a for loop. We'll get all same thing as I said before. We're going to get all the character buttons, confirm that they are a text button, right? Ignore that anything else is not a text button. V dot activated and stuff. Again, if you click or tap, regardless of what device you're on, or at least I don't know if that works for console. I just know it works for computers and phones and like I guess iPads and whatnot. But yeah, so then you're going to fire the remote event. Remember, we use remote events to communicate between the client and the server. Client is just another word for the player. Server is just the server. I think you understand what that means. So core event fire server. This will be the name of our event, right? The name of our event. So we can specify that, right? So character select, right? Because the player is trying to select the character. It's very important to name your events. Your event should be named something that's like similar to its functionality. Like it should, a person should be able to read what it says and like just know, okay, this is what that's for. Like I'm pretty sure you guys are able to read character select and be like, oh, okay, so this is for character selecting, simple. Then v.text, remember v is the instance, so that specific text button that the player clicked and stuff. And then text is just the text is the name of said character, right? For me, I just chose the default names of character 1, character 2, character 3, but obviously in an actual game you would have, All Might, Tanjiro, Mark from Invincible, like whatever and stuff kind of thing, right? So that's what that is. Then go to the server. Now, obviously, I'm not gonna like start explaining the server code. I'm just showing you how it's connected. So then you would go here, and then yeah, I think it would be a little too I don't know if that would maybe be better for me to explain it like a non-linear way of like going down and then like going back and forth, but I feel like that might confuse it. I don't really know. But yeah, so it just all you know is it triggers the core event. Just ignore all this. I'll get to this when I get to the server side. So it triggers the on server event function. Then it will put it through a check and if statement and stuff. So if it matches the character select um function, or sorry, if it matches if the name of the event type is character select, that's the text, then we know the player is trying to select a character, and we will trigger all of this code, which is a lot of code and stuff, right? I mean, selecting character, it's a lot, you know what I'm saying? Then we go down here, then we have our movement system stuff. This is for our movement system. So can dash is, oh my bad, not meaning to open that. So we have can dash and stuff, which you guys understand. So this is just a boolean and stuff, checks if whether or not player can dash. By default it'll be equal to true. Then you have our dash direction, which is simply an empty string. This will obviously change depending on which direction the player is trying to go in and stuff, which is either front, back, left, or right. Then we have our, so this is a string value, empty string by default. Then we have a variable for our animation folder, which is inside of replicated storage right here, boom. So it just has all the different animations and stuff. Our dash animations, our combat animations and stuff, right? Walking animations, like movement animations, as well as like, emotes and stuff like that, right? So we have the animation folder, it's at a replicated storage. Then we just get the debris service, which is just simply used to, destroy instances of stuff like objects and whatnot after a certain amount of time. And then we have our combat status table and stuff, which pretty much this is for our combat status system. A combat status system keeps track of whether or not like what a player is doing combat wise and stuff. Things like walking or jumping aren't combat related. Combat related is like, oh, okay, you just tried to punch some, like you just used an M1, or oh, you just used an M1 and you're currently hitting someone. You're using one of your abilities to where it's like like you have iframes, like you can't be attacked kind of thing, or you're currently being attacked, so you cannot attack another person. So it's just a table, and then we have some values inside: cutscene, attacked, and attacking. So it's string table, right? Then we go into the function. We have our function right here. This is a user input service and stuff, again, detects user input. So input began. Again, I feel like I don't know what's kind of like self-explanatory, so I just really need to explain everything, but I just hope you guys understand input begin, when you initiate some kind of input, when you press your keyboard, you click your mouse, whatever. So it sets up a function, so input, so the type of input, right? Then process, this is going to be a Boolean value and stuff. If it's set to true, that means like you were typing in chat. So let me just show y'all and stuff, right? So if I press the W key right now, right? You notice how my player is not walking straight, right? This is nothing to do with my code. This is like Roblox built in, right? So you notice how my player isn't walking even though I'm pressing the W key, which should move me forward and stuff, right? This means that processed is set to true because that means I'm currently typing in chat. Because obviously you don't want to be able to walk while you're like you're trying to have a conversation with somebody. However, if I close out of the chat bar and I hold down W and stuff or press W, I can walk forward and stuff, right? So if I try to press a key now, process will be set to false. Process is only set to true when you're typing in chat and stuff, where you're pressing keybind while you're typing in chat. So then we'll just use some simple if statements and stuff to detect what kind of keybind the player's pressing. Key code is another way of saying keybind and stuff, right? This is a keybind on a keyboard, pretty much. So this is for our skills. So if input.keycode is equal to 1, so the 1 keybind, or 2, or 3, or 4, right? Then so if it's equal to any one of those, if a player presses any one of those, we will again fire the remote event. The name of the event will be combat and stuff. It will be the combat event. The specific combat type will be skill because they're trying to use one of their skills or abilities. And then you say input.keycode.name instead, which is just specialized, which is it's just specifying, I should say, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 4 and stuff for whatever keybind the player's trying to press and whatever kind of skill they're trying to use, whether they're trying to use skill 1, skill 2, skill 3, or skill 4. Then we have an else if we would say input.keycode is equal to enum.keycode.g. So G is for ultimate and stuff. Whenever a player's ultimate bar is filled, they'll be able to press G to use their ultimate. So first things first, we need to use the if statement. We're going to check the hotbar progress, which is this, right? We're going to check its size, and then pretty much if it's equal to the set of numbers and stuff, this size and stuff, right? Then that means the player is able to use their ult, right? If not, they're not able to use their ult. So if they are, then we will fire their remote event to the server side. The name of the event would be ultimate, and then we will specify the ultimate type as start, because obviously there's start and end. So then we will set the ultimate bar progress text label text is equal to nothing by default and stuff since they're able to use their ult, right? There's no need to let them know that, oh, you can use your ult if you're already using it. Then we will create another tween and stuff, right? Because we need to have like a countdown kind of thing to let the player know, like, okay, this is how long you can use your ult for until it runs out, expires, whatever we're doing, whatever you want to call it. So it runs for tween plays for 45 seconds and stuff. So it's just decreasing the size of the text level gradually, and then once it's finished, you will fire the remote event to signal the end of the ultimate and stuff, right? Then we have another else if. So this is for movement and stuff. This is for whenever a player is trying to so this isn't for when a player is trying to dash. This is just to update information so that when a player is trying to dash, it'll be useful. So whenever you press the W key, the A D, the S D, or the D key, which is your movement keys, WASD, your dash direction is updated, right? If you're holding the W key, if your last known key that you pressed was W and then you press the Q key, you're trying to go forward. If it's A and you press the Q key, which is our dash key, right? You're trying to go to the left, and then same thing goes for the D key and the S key, right? You go right or back, right? So you're just updating the dash direction, which again is a string. You're just updating that to whatever the input keycode.name is, which is it's either W, A, S, or D, right? Then we have another else if statement. Instead, this is for when a player is actually trying to dash. So Q is my dash keybind stuff that I made for the series. So we need to first make sure that and make sure that player.character.isRunning.value is set to true, which means the player is running. Or let me phrase that the player is I guess the best way to put it is like they're moving is a better way to put it, right? And of course, dash direction is not equal to an empty string, which an empty string means like they're not walking in any kind of direction and stuff, right? You need to make sure that they're moving in some kind of direction, and of course, make sure that can dash is equal to true. Obviously, we need to have a cooldown and whatnot, so that's why we need to make sure can dash is set to true. Then we use an if statement, so we'll say if table.find, so it searches the combat status table and then it searches the character to see if there's the character.combat status value. Combat status means, whatever the player is currently doing combat wise, right? So if it finds a value, which means if they're currently in a cutscene, if they're currently being attacked, or if they're attacking someone, they can't just dash away. So return means it'll halt execution. It will not run any of this code. It will return. Like it returns nothing, but it just halts. The rest of the function does not run, play, whatever you want to call it, right? But if they're not in any kind of combat situation stuff where they can't dash, then we'll proceed and stuff, right? We'll create an attachment, right? We will parent it to the character's humanoid root part. We will then create a linear velocity. This is what gives the player like that boost and stuff that works for dash systems and stuff. So we will parent this to the attachment. We'll create a part. This part will help us determine which direction to push the player in, right? Because if they're trying to go forward, we want to push them from the back, pause, right? And then vice versa, for left, right, forward, right? And then we're setting some properties, making sure it's anchored, making sure it's invisible, obviously, and that it's, players can't like walk, players can walk through it. Then we're going to create a variable called multiplier and stuff. The multiplier is pretty much, whatever direction the player needs to go based off of the direction they're moving in. So let's say if they're trying to go forward, we'll set multipliers equal to these coordinates will pretty much mean it'll send the player, it'll launch the player forward. This means the left, this means backwards, and this means the right. Right, and then one specific thing is that if they're doing a front dash, we do need to trigger a front dash function and stuff, right? The reason that front dash is treated differently than other dashes is because when when you do a front dash in Battlegrounds games, it usually also like throws a punch and stuff, right? So you're able to also attack players, like start a combo like that. So that's why front dash is treated differently than the other one. So we just use a delay function after half a second. It'll trigger this function, which will trigger the core event fired to the server with the front dash event. And then ASD is just, updating the multiplier variables value with whatever direction, whatever C-frame coordinates needed so that the player can move in said direction. Then we create our animation track, which is just how we play animations and stuff. So we say character.humanoid.animator and stuff, right? So your character, this is just going inside of your character inside a workspace. So character.humanoid.animator, right? That's all we're doing. So you're going to do load animation. You're going to go to the animation folder. So this player.currentCharacter.value. Let's say I have character 1 equipped. So we'll go here, right? Then I will search the regular brackets. It just means it's searching for something, right? And then this means like what are you going to use to search? So it's almost like this is kind of like a opening a book, and this is kind of like a page number or like a chapter name, kind of essentially. Stuff is like the best way to explain it. So then you would put, since this is for a dash system, you would put the dash direction. So that would be either W, A, S, or D, and then followed by the string dash animation. So it would either be one of these four animations, right? Then we play the animation track. Then we'd also play the dash sound effect, right? And then we will set the part C frame to character the human part dot C frame times the multiplier stuff. So this will pretty much just be based on what direction you're trying to go in, right? Then we'll set some properties to the linear velocity, the max force, the vector velocity. This is just to ensure that the player is, pushed and stuff, right? It's just to ensure they're pushed, and then that we need to destroy it very quickly so that they're not like pushed, like across the map or something. It needs to be a real quick push. Then we will set can dash equal to false, have a little cooldown, then set it equal to true once we're done, right? Then we come down here and we have our next input.keycode. So F is when you're trying to block, right? So we're just gonna fire the remote event, block, and then your start, like as in you're trying to block at this moment in time, right? Then we have a separate. This is not a keybind. This is for when you're trying to use M1. So mouse button when it proceeds equals false. Then you're just firing the remote event. So again, the combat event, and then the combat type is M1, right? So yeah, with that, we are, wow. So how long? Wow, 20 minutes in, and we are, whoa, only like 1/4 of the way through the code. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to break this up into different parts if people are interested in this. But anyway, so yeah, so we have the block. Do I feel like doing this? I'm probably gonna go. I think I'll just do like half. Like I'll just get to 200, and then yeah. So yeah, so once we're done there, we are done with the entire UIS, the input began function. Now we can move on to the UIS, the input ended, which pretty much just means you took your finger off of the keybind, right? So if you take it off of the F keybind, that means you want your blocking to stop. So if statements. Once you've released the F key, then you're firing the remote event, block event, then telling the server that you want to end, you want to stop blocking, right? Then we have our core event and on client event. So whenever the server fires to the client, this function is triggered. We have our event type to specify whatever event is happening. arg1, arg2, these are arguments and stuff. This just means pieces of information sent over from the server to the client. So first things first, if event type is equal to toolbar disable, self-explanatory. We're just disabling the player's toolbar so that they can't see the backpack because we have a custom UI system. Then else if event type is equal to join, so whenever the player first joins, we're triggering the character select system to automatically select whatever your default character is in the game. I just realized I never did data saving this. Honestly interesting. But anyway. So yeah, so it'll automatically select trigger automatically equip the default character for your game. Then the next event we have hotbar update. This is just for whenever you switch characters and stuff. A new character. It's just gonna update. Create variables for skill number, skill name. So 1, 2, 3, 4 for skill number. Skill name was the name, whatever the name of the skills are, right? Then you're gonna use the for loop to iterate through the hotbar, which is right here. Then hotbar frame. You're gonna get your skill text labels and stuff, which are these right here. And then you're just simply going to say if v.name is equal to skill number dot 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 text label, which pretty much just means if skill1 text label is equal to skill number, which let's say is 1, then text label wait, v.name, wait, hotbar frame, get children. If v.name is equal to skill number text label, which I'm guessing is probably skill. It's probably, yeah, it's probably skill one. So yeah, so this would be skill one, skill two, skill three, or skill four, right? So that's what it'll say plus the addition of text label. Then if it matches, it'll just say v.text is equal to. It'll update the text with the new skill name. Then you will make it. You will reset the ultimate bar progress since they switch characters and stuff. You will reset the size and everything. You will update the is running. You will say player that character is running change. So whenever that changes, you will say if status equals to true. You'll play. This is for movement. You will play footstep sounds whenever a player moves around, and then you'll stop it when they stop moving around, right? Then for our next event, we have the ultimate bar, right? So this is for whenever it's full. So whenever the player's ultimate bar is full, right? Then you're going to say if mobile user, so you want to confirm first, if it is a mobile user, you will make the ultimate text button available so that they can click the ultimate text button since they don't obviously have a keyboard. And so if you'll make that button visible once they click that button, then we'll just do the same stuff we did earlier that I explained. You'll just make the ultimate text button no longer visible. You'll trigger the remote event for the ultimate to start, the text, the tween, and then once it's completed, you'll end it. And that's simple. But if they're not a mobile user, then you'll just say else. Then you'll just have the text is equal to G, press G for ultimate. This just means this whole event is just for the sake of, okay, the player's bar is now full, right? Then on the outside and stuff, right? Let's say that the player's bar is not full, then you're just gonna increase it and stuff. This, because your ultimate bar increases whenever you deal damage and stuff. Then this is for when you actually use your ultimate and stuff, right? So this is for the cutscene and stuff, right? So we're going to use a for loop. We're going to iterate through the hotbar frame. We're going to make it so that we're going to reset all the skill cooldown text labels. So this is just the cooldowns. To make it so that the cooldowns, it shows that no skills are on cooldown. Because if you just use your ultimate, then obviously there's no reason for any of them to be on cooldown, right? Then you're just going to use an if statement. So let's say if you're currently using character one, then we're gonna update all your skills with your ultimate skills and stuff, right? Same thing I explained before. Then you just get the camera, the workspace, that current camera and stuff. That's where you see out of and stuff, right? Then you're just gonna switch it to scriptable, right? You're going to disable the UI so they can't see. Then you're just going to play your ultimate tween. All this code simply does is just make it so that it just rotates your camera so that you're like downward facing your character. So it's like it puts you at like this angle, stuff like a cool angle, like a cool third person angle kind of thing. So yeah, plays that, waits 2 seconds, re-enables your UI, and then switches your camera type back to normal. Then for our next event type, we have cooldown. So this is whenever a player, uses a skill, then it needs to go on cooldown. So we specify the cooldown duration as well as the skill number. So we'll then retrieve the skill text label, then set the cooldown's text label size, and then equal to whatever this is, and then we will use a tween to make it slowly go down back to its regular size. If that doesn't really make any sense, if I press play and then I press 1, you see how we made it the size here and then it slowly goes down. Yeah, that's what's pretty much happening. Right. Then for our last event, we have the emote event, right? So this is for whenever a player's trying to use emote. So we have the emote event, then the emote name. So if emote event is equals update. So pretty much this is if a player has bought a new emote, then we will create a new button for it. We'll parent it to the owned emotes frame. Inside of the emote UI, it'll be a text button. We'll name it emote button. The text will be set to whatever the name of the emote is. Background will be transparent, bold text, scale text. Text transparency will be set to 0, and then whenever the player taps on the button or clicks on it and stuff, they will play whatever it is, whatever the emote is. So we'll retrieve the animation from the animation folder inside of replicated storage instead of the emotes folder, right? We'll trigger that and we'll play the animation. So yeah, that's about half of the code. Yes, like half of the code for the local script. I will definitely continue this series and stuff because I probably honestly have to. I honestly thought I could do this in like one video, but honestly that'd be like 2 hours long because it's honestly like 1,000 lines of code and stuff, so it's a lot of code to go over. But yeah, I can break this off into like a little mini series and stuff I do for the Battleground series where I go through everything. Then I do the same for the Tower Defense series and stuff. So as long as the video gets love and support, then I will definitely continue the series, keep it going and stuff. So if you guys want more, just definitely leave a like, subscribe to the video. Let me know in the comments if you want more, if you learned something from this, if and everything. If you want access to any one of my scripts or models, just read the description, and which includes this, all this stuff. You could have it as long as you read the description and you do what do what needs to be done and stuff, right? But anyway, thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.